I have so many acquaintances, so many people, because of my age especially, who are suffering from this, and it just breaks your heart.
The statistics on Alzheimer's are frightening in that there are over 5.5 million people in the United States with Alzheimer's. And they estimate that within 30 years or so, there will be maybe as many as 15 million.
This is a disorder where you get into some demographics, and over half of the people in that group have it. For example, if you look at women over the age of 90, more than half will have Alzheimer's disease, which makes you wonder who's the normal group.
The University of Kansas Alzheimer's Disease Center is taking a markedly different approach to the treatment of Alzheimer's. Instead of trying to develop another pill or medical procedure to repair damage, KU believes the best way to treat the disease is to catch it before it starts.
We think that, in midlife, if we're controlling our blood pressure and our cardiovascular risk factors, if we're exercising, if we're avoiding obesity, we're doing our brain a favor down the road. If somebody's destined to get Alzheimer's disease, and we can delay the onset 5 years, and we can do that across the population, we'll cut the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease by 50%. And that's a big deal.
KU recently launched a new study aimed at delaying Alzheimer's disease. Researchers hope it will allow them to track the disease from its very beginning stages.
20 years ago, we would have said that you have to have enough memory decline in order to not be able to really get through your day independently in order to have Alzheimer's. And then we started to realize that it takes a while for people to get to that point.
The program starts by giving volunteers a very thorough exam that now includes new brain scanning technology that can actually predict Alzheimer's in some patients.
What we do with it is we actually do a very thorough Alzheimer's risk profile and a physical health profile as well. And part of that Alzheimer's risk profile is a new scan. And it's a scan that actually detects the presence or absence of amyloid plaques in the brain.
There are some very distinct changes that you see in Alzheimer's. One of the most obvious ones is you get atrophy, so the brain starts to shrink. As the brain cells deteriorate, they tend to disappear, and you can look at certain particular parts in the brain that are distinctive. So you can determine whether a person is likely to have an Alzheimer's presentation.
Researchers have recently discovered that amyloid plaque begins to build up decades before patients even start noticing problems with their memory.
A lot of people who have no cognitive issues, in fact about a third of individuals over the age of 65 with no cognitive issues whatsoever have amyloid plaques in their brain. Amyloid plaques are seen in most people with the syndrome of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and so this may represent some of the earliest changes that might be occurring 10, 15 years before the onset of symptoms.
There are a lot of trials going on right now, such as preventing the production of beta amyloid in the brain or removing it from the brain, but it's not proving to be promising a strategy as people would have hoped. If those changes are a consequence of something upstream, we may make the brain look better. We may pull the plaques out or make the tangles go away or get rid of the oxidative stress. But if there's a upstream problem that's actually driving all these changes, that upstream problem is still going to be there. So that's why we're very focused on what we think might be the upstream problem. We think that it may be this breakdown in brain energy metabolism that we know is occurring.
Each of the 29 NIH-designated Alzheimer's centers is known for a specialty. KU is recognized for its focus on exercise and diet.
The theme of our center is metabolism, and from the level of a patient, the way we can alter metabolism easily is exercise and diet. Most of my focus in the research projects that I'm leading they're focused on exercise. So how can we use exercise to help the individual? We know exercise helps the body, but we're trying to answer the question, how does exercise help the brain? And then if it helps the brain, why?
At a kitchen inside KU's Alzheimer's Disease Center, dietitians also present classes on how to cook brain-healthy food.
People have wondered for a long time, can they affect their health through their diet? And obviously they can. But how would you specifically go about changing the brain through diet. And there are a lot of epidemiology studies that suggest there may be certain benefits to some of these diets. For example, a Mediterranean diet that's very high on olive oil. Well, some people have hypothesized that olive oil may be good for the brain, and that maybe that's protective. There have been some studies that have found that people who eat a lot of fruits and vegetables may have lower rates of Alzheimer's disease, and people have hypothesized that might be because of antioxidant molecules that are found in things like fruits especially. You know, when you take a step back and you think about it, there are some very specific ways that you can manipulate the brain through your diet.
The Alzheimer's drug development field is considered to be at a crossroads. For more than a decade, Alzheimer's treatment has focused on beta amyloid and plaque removal. Scientists have found ways to prevent and remove plaque, but unfortunately, that hasn't panned out to any notable successes.
On one hand, we may say, well, these drugs will work, we just need to start treating people earlier on in the course of their Alzheimer's change. But that implies that we're going to be unable to help people who have Alzheimer's disease now, or who are going to get it within the next 5 or maybe even the next 10 years. We don't think that that's the way to go. We think we'll be able to help people who already do have Alzheimer's disease now, and so we're not giving up on anyone.